Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Very happy to welcome author Ollie Master, author of Beyond the Golden Door. Good morning, Ollie.
Good morning, Susie. Great to be with you.
We appreciate your time. I love the subscript here, Seeing the American Dream Through an Immigrant's Eyes. So this is autobiographical, yes?
It is. It's my debut memoir, but it's really written in a way where it's more than a memoir. It's a message to really everyone about freedom.
Mm-hmm. What was it about the American dream that drew you here, Ollie?
Well, like many students that come here, America is known for many things. Land of opportunity, as people call it. For me, that was education. So we're talking for your listeners, mid 80s here, 86. So 30 plus years ago, I came to get my degree in an American university, in University of Texas.
Mm-hmm. And that was and you decided to stay, or you liked what you saw here? Something compelled you to stay?
Yes, life happened, and the book talks about the many twists and turns. But yeah, I basically thought I would come here, get my education, maybe work for a few years. And then I was the only child, so I had obligations to take care of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting to head back home in 5 or 6 years.
And something happened. What happened?
Oh, gosh, lots of things happened. First of all, I think my parents sent me to University of Texas at Arlington because I had some family in that area, so somebody could watch over me.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't go very well because life is so busy in America that, my cousins, they were doing their own thing, and I was pretty much first semester on, things went sort of downhill because I talk about it in the book,
Mm-hmm.
that the boys' dorm ran out of space, so me and 10 guys are living in the girls' dorm in University of Texas, and things went south very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I made a lot of mistakes. I ended up working at McDonald's, which from the very beginning, I was sort of learning what it means to work hard.
Yes.
And then eventually, as the book talks about, I met this girl that told me about Christ, and so I made a career here. I made a faith change here. A lot of things transpired that caused me to stick with America.
It's such an amazing story. It's a beautiful story. Let's review where your home country, where your parents were, was Pakistan, yes?
Yes. So I born and raised in Pakistan, came here at the age of 18.
So raised in the Muslim faith for all of those years,
Yes.
correct? It's difficult for an American to grasp all that you had to go through in that transition. And for a Christian in America to think of making that drastic of a change, first of all, how did that go over with mom and dad?
Not very well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you're hitting on some important points. The Muslim culture is very collective in the way it thinks and operates, and so for you to change, you're really turning your back on your family and your culture, because it's hard to separate faith and life and all those things. They're all very intertwined. So to tell your parents that you love them, in fact, you love them even more now because of Christ,
Yes.
but yet you don't believe exactly what they do, it's hard for them to grasp that. But over time, they started to see that I had truly changed for the better and still loved them. And even though I stayed in the United States all these years, my career success allowed me to then take care of them from even here. And I've gone back like so many times
Mm-hmm.
but that's very difficult, you're right, for them to understand.
But you can love them and act out Jesus' love for them without talking about it so much. Is that how you communicate that love? They experience the the warm exception and inclusivity that Christianity offers?
Well, over the years, so yes, for in the beginning it was very painful, and Beyond the Golden Door talks about me going back home as a short-term missionary to tell them about Christ.
Wow.
Because if you're going to discover this amazing treasure that most Muslims revere and respect Jesus, but they don't really know his full identity. So when I discovered that here, all my stereotypes that most of our students that come to America have so many stereotypes about Americans and Christianity, life here. When those stereotypes sort of got debunked and I really met face to face with him, I had to go back and tell them about it.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult, but over time, I've been very open with my parents, and I actually got to pray with my mom like 3 years ago, believe it or not.
Wow.
So it's been a long journey.
But she was open to praying to the real Jesus?
She prayed with me. She held my hand and prayed, but it wasn't, Susie, we're talking 30 years of moving from no communication to emotional persecution to slowly warming up, slowly starting to come to America, coming here, visiting my family here, going to church with me here.
Wow.
So you move over time, and you constantly drip of just loving them.
Yes.
And eventually, after a lot of arguments, those arguments went away, and then it was more openness, and then eventually she did pray with me.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and someone said, you're not trying to win an argument, you're trying to win their heart. And it's a different thing, isn't it? It's that relationship over time. What was it that moved you from the Muslim faith to accepting Christianity as your faith and adopting it as your own?
So what happened was, going back to McDonald's, I was working there and trying to pay for college and make my way through University of Texas, and this is where I met this girl, Judy, and she was the first true person that was walking with Christ, that was living out her faith, because I had a lot of my stereotype before meeting her had been validated about the decadent American lifestyle, because most of us think everybody in America is a Christian, which is not the case.
True.
So I met her, and just seeing her character, befriended her. And initially I was like, well, she's just different. But then her family had the same passion for God, and her friends did the same. And so I was starting to kind of drawn to that. Eventually that relationship led to, hey, maybe you should come to church with me. And so I decided to start going to church, and everything that I had heard about Jesus and what Christians were like were starting to be disproven. Ultimately, I ended up getting a Bible from her and just starting to read that book and comparing it to the book I grew up with. It was difficult to not be drawn to Christ. So my eyes were sort of opened, both by seeing faith lived out and then experiencing it through the reading.
I think so many of us Christians would love to be able to win people in the Muslim faith and are not sure of how to start that conversation or what to do, what's the right thing to do. We want to befriend them. We want them to, obviously, you want everyone to know about Jesus. And it's kind of tricky, and especially when you're told that giving somebody a Bible would be illegal. That's maybe one of the misconceptions that we have. Can you address that?
Sure. And, it really, I don't want to oversimplify this, but it comes down to, you want to expose them to Christ, and then God opens the door. It depends on the personality. I think there are some fundamental principles. So hospitality is very important. It takes a lot of time to build that bridge, because build that trust. So for me, it was the relationship came first, and trusting my friend and her family and seeing this credibility in their character, so hospitality was a huge part of it. Prayer was a big part of it, just sort of understanding that there were people willing to pray for various needs I had, and then starting to then get exposed to reading the Bible. There's a lot of these stereotypes and misconceptions that many Muslims have, and the Bible has been changed, or Jesus, never died on the cross, or or Trinity. They're very confused about Trinity. So before coming here, I thought, okay, it's Jesus and Mary and the Father, and there was some inappropriate relationship. And
no.
so many of those things are had to be slowly remediated and clarified. So it's not an easy, simple formula, but in some ways it's no different than loving somebody else, a family member or friend. It's totally fine to share a Bible with them.
Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. That's good to know, because I think a lot of people feel like that you'd be in serious trouble sharing something like that. It seems to me that the Muslim faith is so ingrained in Muslim culture and way of life that talking about faith issues might be actually an easy conversation to have, and they might be interested in my faith. Yes or no, or am I off on that?
Yeah, I think it starts with respect and also being willing to understand. I mean, I don't know any Muslims who don't want to they don't want to respect God or to not have a relationship with, and they have a lot of esteem for God, and so they value that faith and having trust in God. And so I think having conversations, there's a lot of stories in the Quran about prophets, Jesus, of course, David, Abraham. I think slowly as that relationship builds, then your audience can start to talk about who Jesus really is in the Bible. So I don't think I think you're right. I don't think there's a problem in sharing that, and they're very open to prayer, and if there's a need, so you certainly should make prayer a big part of that.
So good. Beyond the Golden Door, you have had a lot of doors open for you, very successful career. And what would you say to other people who are immigrants as far as being able to find their path here?
So immigration is on everybody's mind right now, and your question is, what is my message to immigrants? And so my thoughts are, I really encourage immigrants to totally embrace the culture and to bring their whole self to it. So a lot of times I see immigrants that come in and they will sort of be much more interacting with people from their own circles, and to try to embrace the values and culture, not be afraid of it, and try to learn. There's so much that this nation has to offer. So embrace the values and culture. It's not easy. So the book talks about many failures. So I went from McDonald's to making a managing partner at Ernst & Young, but it happened with many, many failures, many sponsors that I ran into and relationships I formed, and to avail myself of the freedoms that are available in this nation. So,
good advice. We're speaking with Ali Master. He is author of Beyond the Golden Door. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.